There is a knowledge that has been deliberately hidden about how your mind creates your reality. Infinite versions of your life, prosperity or scarcity, vibrant health or fragility, fulfillment or frustration, coexist right now as parallel realities, each one vibrating at its specific frequency of consciousness, and access to all of them is available. But the beliefs about yourself, built since childhood, constantly emit a vibrational signature that determines which of these realities manifests in your experience. 95% of people remain trapped in loops of limitation because their thoughts and feelings operate on autopilot, always tuned to patterns from the past. Genuine transformation occurs when the recognition emerges that trying to change external reality while maintaining the same internal energetic pattern is impossible. It's necessary to first consciously choose the desired reality, merge thoughts and feelings with that future version of yourself, and bring it into the present through the deliberate control of attention and imagination. When this new frequency stabilizes naturally, the external reality spontaneously reorganizes itself to match the new state of consciousness.
There exists an invisible architecture that governs every aspect of human experience, a mechanism so fundamental that understanding it would instantly transform the trajectory of any life. This knowledge remains deliberately fragmented, scattered throughout ancient Hermetic traditions, and now emerging through discoveries about the nature of consciousness and its interaction with physical reality. You operate at this exact moment as pure consciousness, with simultaneous access to infinite parallel realities. Each of these realities exists now, complete and accessible, vibrating at specific frequencies. Your self-image, that deep identity about who you are, constantly emits a particular vibrational frequency that determines which of these realities you experience moment by moment. 95% of people remain trapped in loops of limitation because their thoughts and feelings operate on autopilot, always tethered to the past. They wake up each morning and immediately reconnect to the same worries, to the same mental patterns, to the same limiting expectations. The brain, following the Hermetic principle of rhythm, automatically returns to the deepest neural grooves, those created by the constant repetition of the same thoughts day after day. The self-image forms in the early years of life when the mind operates in a highly receptive state. Every experience, every word heard, every emotional sensation engraves itself deeply, creating the mold through which all future reality will be interpreted. This initial programming becomes the invisible filter that determines what you consider possible or impossible, real or fantasy. Genuine transformation occurs when you recognize that trying to change external reality while maintaining the same internal frequency is impossible. The principle of correspondence establishes that the exterior always reflects the interior, as above, so below, as within, so without. You cannot experience abundance while vibrating in scarcity. You cannot know love while vibrating in fear. You cannot access health while vibrating in illness. Instead, you must first consciously choose the desired reality. Merge your thoughts and feelings with that future version of yourself. Bring it into the present through the deliberate control of attention and imagination. Neville Goddard establishes that assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled reorganizes the entire structure of reality, not through force or effort, but through the naturalness of being. When this new frequency stabilizes naturally, when thinking and feeling from the desired state becomes automatic, the external reality spontaneously reorganizes itself to correspond to the new state of consciousness. Events synchronize, people appear, opportunities emerge, not by coincidence, but by vibrational resonance. You attract what you are, not what you want. Human consciousness operates through a specific mechanism that few understand in its entirety. Each temporal moment offers an entry into different configurations of reality, multiple timelines coexisting in the same space, distinguished only by their characteristic vibrational frequencies. This principle, explored both in Hermetic traditions and in the modern understanding of consciousness, reveals that human experience is not fixed in a single predetermined trajectory. The concept of dimensional portals emerges from the observation that different realities coexist simultaneously, each one representing a specific timeline of the life that someone could be experiencing. Neville Goddard establishes that all states exist now, and the power of conscious choice determines which state manifests in experience. It's not about creating something new, but about consciously tuning in to what already exists in potential. What 95% of people don't recognize is that their thoughts and feelings constantly emit a specific frequency throughout each day. This process occurs regardless of awareness or intention. The Hermetic principle of vibration teaches that the differences between the various manifestations of matter, energy, and mind result primarily from varying rates of vibration. Your thoughts and feelings participate in this universal principle, generating vibrational patterns that continuously interact with the field of possibilities. This frequency functions as an energetic portal that determines which reality you access. Consider how frequency tuning works. A receiver picks up only the signals that correspond to its current configuration. Similarly, your personal vibrational frequency tunes in to experiences that resonate with your predominant energetic pattern. Seth, through Jane Roberts, articulates that you form your reality through your beliefs, and these beliefs direct psychic energy into specific patterns of manifestation. The majority keep their thoughts and feelings connected to the past, creating a loop of repetition of the same experiences. This phenomenon occurs because the brain, seeking efficiency, favors established neural pathways. Each morning, upon awakening, the mind automatically returns to the same themes, worries, and emotional patterns from the previous day. This repetition strengthens existing neural circuits, making it increasingly likely that the same thoughts and feelings will arise again. When you develop awareness about daily mental processes, you notice how the self-image conditions you to think in a specific way, generating repetitive, habitual thoughts. The self-image represents the totality of beliefs you hold about yourself, formed through accumulated experiences, especially during the formative years. It operates as a master program, filtering information, directing attention, and generating automatic responses that confirm its basic premises about who you are and what is possible for you. Internal convictions and assumptions daily create your vibrational frequency, operating on autopilot for almost everyone on the planet. These convictions are not merely abstract ideas. They instruct the nervous system, influence hormonal release, and affect genetic expression. Joe Dispenza documents how repetitive thoughts create the same choices, which lead to the same behaviors, which produce the same experiences, which generate the same emotions, which then inspire the same thoughts, closing the loop. This automatic programming keeps people trapped in a cage of limitation, where financial problems, physical issues, and dramas follow like a constant plague. The cage is not externally imposed. It's maintained by the consistency of the internal frequency. When someone constantly vibrates in financial worry, that frequency attracts and perceives evidence of scarcity. When they maintain the identity of physical fragility, the body responds by confirming that expectation. Relational dramas repeat because the internal vibrational pattern continues attracting the same dynamics. The recognition of this mechanism opens possibilities for change. Neville Goddard teaches that assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled reorganizes the entire experience. But this reorganization requires more than intellectual understanding. It demands the consistent practice of consciously directing attention to the desired frequency. Each time you detect the mind returning to old patterns and consciously choose to focus on the preferred reality, you weaken the automatism and strengthen the new pattern. The development of this capacity follows specific principles. First, the observation without judgment of current patterns. Second, the clear choice of the desired frequency. Third, the repeated practice of returning to that frequency when the mind drifts to old patterns. The Kybalion establishes that mental mastery doesn't come through denial or suppression, but through the conscious use of one principle against another, polarization instead of direct opposition. The different portals of reality remain available, awaiting the appropriate frequency alignment. The transition between realities occurs when the new frequency stabilizes, when the new pattern of thought and feeling becomes more natural than the old. This is a gradual process of reconditioning, where conscious persistence eventually replaces automatic programming, allowing access to experiences previously considered impossible or unlikely. There exists a fundamental distinction between who you think you are and what you truly are. You completely transcend your thoughts, beliefs, name, body, past, and current circumstances. These elements that seem to define your identity are, in reality, temporary accessories, masks that consciousness wears to experience itself in specific ways. Your essence represents something infinitely grander than any frequency, self-image, or specific reality that you might be experiencing at this moment. Neville Goddard establishes that you are the operating power itself, not the operator of the power. This distinction radically alters the understanding of the nature of existence. You are not a person trying to manifest things. You are consciousness itself assuming the form of a person having experiences. The body, the name, the personal history, all these elements arise within the consciousness that you are, not the other way around. You exist as a unique expression within universal consciousness, the space where all realities and frequencies exist simultaneously. Seth, a multidimensional entity and non-physical consciousness that transmitted extensive channeled teachings through Jane Roberts for 2 decades, 1963 to 1984, articulates that consciousness forms matter, not the reverse. Each apparently solid object, each physical body, each material structure emerges from consciousness patterns organized in specific ways. Universal consciousness is not a distant, abstract concept. It's the very fabric from which all experience is constructed, and you represent a unique focal point within that infinite vastness. The recognition of your pure existence, without any complement or identification, reveals the field where all possibilities coexist. When you temporarily remove identification with your name, your history, your problems, your desires, what remains? That observing awareness that witnesses all these phenomena continues present, unchanged. It was present when you were 5 years old, it's present now, and it will continue to be present regardless of any changes in external circumstances. The Kybalion teaches that the all is mind, the universe is mental. Within this understanding, consciousness is not a byproduct of brain activity, but the fundamental principle from which all physical manifestation derives. Your brain doesn't produce consciousness. It receives, processes, and translates it into specific human experience. Consciousness constitutes your true nature, prior to and beyond any particular form it might assume. What you believe, know, and feel as true determines your daily vibrational frequency. These are not simply superficial opinions, but deep convictions that operate at the level of being. When you know something in the deepest part of your being, not just think or hope, but know with every fiber of your existence, that certainty establishes the frequency that organizes your entire experience. The feeling of certainty about who you are constantly transmits. creating a magnetic field that attracts corresponding experiences. Your awareness of who you are functions as the portal to any reality you wish to attract and perceive. This includes your habits, your energetic aura, and all aspects of your expression in the world. Joe Dispenza demonstrates that when you change your state of being, not just your thoughts, but your complete energetic state, you access different quantum potentials. The field responds not to what you want, but to what you are. The trap into which most fall consists of trying to change external reality without first altering the internal state of consciousness. They fight against circumstances, struggle against appearances, battle with the outer world without realizing that they're fighting with their own projections. The world you perceive is your consciousness externalized, your thoughts and feelings translated into apparently solid form. Instead of trying to change external reality, you need to first choose and claim the life you want to experience. Claiming means more than wishing or hoping. It means internally assuming the awareness of already being, already having, already living the chosen reality. Neville Goddard calls this thinking from the end, where you assume the feeling of accomplishment and allow that feeling to reorganize your experience. Transformation begins when you recognize that you create everything through how you perceive yourself and through the thoughts and feelings maintained at each moment. It's not about you deliberately creating every detail. Creation occurs automatically, based on your predominant state of consciousness. Change the state, and the creation changes correspondingly. Remain in the same state, and creation continues producing variations of the same theme. Seth explains that you project your reality the same way your voice projects words. Words don't physically exist inside your throat. They are formed and projected outward. Similarly, your reality doesn't exist independently within some objective universe. It's continuously projected from inside out through your state of consciousness. Each person lives in their own psychological universe, perceiving a unique version of reality colored by their specific beliefs and expectations. This understanding reveals why two individuals can experience the same external event in completely different ways. Each perceives through the filter of their own consciousness, seeing confirmation of their pre-existing beliefs. The optimist and the pessimist live in different worlds, not because the objective world is different, but because their consciousnesses project and perceive distinct realities from the same field of infinite potential. The conscious fusion of your thoughts and feelings with the desired reality needs to happen first, before any external change. Most people spend years trying to force changes in the outer world without realizing they're attacking the effects, not the cause. While most try to reorganize external circumstances, hoping to feel different afterward, the real mechanism operates in the opposite direction. Neville Goddard teaches that you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, allowing that internal state to spontaneously reorganize the outer world. The training of the mind directs attention during the day to recognize your unique expression within consciousness. Each moment offers an opportunity to observe where your attention naturally gravitates. Do you notice how certain themes dominate your mental space? How specific worries return cyclically? This pattern of habitual attention keeps a particular frequency active, constantly broadcasting a specific signal to the field of possibilities around you. Your self-image, formed since childhood, constantly emits a specific frequency that determines everything in your life. During the first 7 years, when the brain operates predominantly in theta waves, the state of high suggestibility, every experience imprints itself deeply into consciousness. The words of parents, family dynamics, moments of joy or trauma, all crystallize into fundamental convictions about who you are and how the world works. These convictions now operate as vibrational instructions, continuously organizing your experience to confirm their original premises. The shift of attention from the idea of yourself that harbors thoughts and feelings from the past to thoughts and feelings about the desired future immediately transforms your frequency. The Kybalion establishes the principle of polarity. Everything has two poles, and opposites are identical in nature but different in degree. Fear and love, scarcity and abundance, illness and health exist on the same vibrational continuum. Changing your attention from one pole to another doesn't require force, only conscious redirection of mental focus. This shift instantly alters your energy, habits, way of doing things, and the circumstances you perceive. When you genuinely sustain the frequency of the desired reality, your nervous system responds with new activation patterns. The neurotransmitters release change, hormonal responses alter, and even genetic expression is modified. Joe Dispenza documents how experienced meditators can regulate genes within days through sustained change of mental and emotional state. You begin to consciously look through new eyes, aligned with the frequency of the desired reality. The same physical environment reveals different aspects based on the observer's state of consciousness. A person in a state of genuine gratitude perceives abundant opportunities where another, vibrating in lack, sees only closed doors and insurmountable limitations. Nothing exists outside your own self-concept. Trying to change externally makes life exhausting. Each battle against circumstances is fundamentally a fight against your own crystallized projections. The world you experience is your self-concept externalized, made apparently solid through constant repetition of the same patterns of thought and feeling. Fighting against the mirror doesn't change the reflection, only altering what stands before the mirror transforms the reflected image. Seth, through Jane Roberts, establishes that your beliefs form reality, just as cells form the body. Beliefs are not merely perceptual filters, they are creative commands that organize energy into specific patterns of experience. Changing a core belief about yourself initiates a cascade of changes that eventually reconfigures the entire life experience. What you feel and know to be true about yourself at any given moment shapes your vibrational frequency. It's not what you occasionally think or wish, but what you consistently feel as true in the deepest part of your being. This visceral feeling of identity, who you know you are when no one is watching, transmits continuously, attracting people, situations, and experiences that resonate with that fundamental frequency. You remain locked in a particular paradigm until you recognize that giving energy to current circumstances perpetuates the present reality. Each time you emotionally react to external appearances, you reinforce their solidity. Each moment of worry about existing problems feeds their continuation. Attention is energetic food. What you focus on grows and strengthens. Withdrawing attention from undesirable circumstances while maintaining focus on the preferred reality initiates the process of dissolving one and crystallizing the other. The process requires constant vigilance initially. The mind, following the principle of least resistance, naturally returns to the deepest neural grooves. Those thought patterns repeated thousands of times, but each conscious redirection weakens the old pattern and strengthens the new. With consistent practice, what initially requires conscious effort gradually becomes automatic. The new frequency stabilizes, becoming your new natural state of being. This mechanism operates with mathematical precision, following laws as consistent as gravity. Understanding and consciously applying these principles transforms you from a victim of circumstances into a conscious director of your own experience. External reality will always follow the lead of internal frequency. This is the fundamental law that governs all manifestation in the physical plane. Choosing first instead of trying to change represents the fundamental secret. The law of assumption, as taught by Neville Goddard, establishes that you must first assume the desired state as already accomplished, allowing that assumption to naturally reorganize external circumstances. This principle completely inverts the conventional approach, where people struggle to change the outer world, hoping that it will eventually make them feel different internally. Clarity about what you really want needs to emerge before any action. How many people truly stop to question whether their goals are genuinely theirs, or whether they were inherited, imposed, or suggested by others? Society offers a limited menu of acceptable aspirations, and most simply choose from these pre-approved options without ever consulting their deep inner resonance. Sitting in quietness and allowing your authentic desires to emerge, those that make your soul sing, often reveal completely unexpected directions. You must begin to live, embody, and claim the chosen reality, bringing thoughts and feelings about your future into the present moment. Neville Goddard repeatedly emphasizes that feeling is the secret, not empty thought, not mechanical visualization, but the living feeling of already possessing, already being, already experiencing the desired. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled with such conviction that it becomes natural to think from that state, you have activated the law of assumption in its most potent form. This replaces the pattern of constantly bringing a past version of yourself into the present, repeatedly reliving old frequencies. Notice how, upon waking, your mind immediately seeks to reconnect with yesterday's identity. I am someone who has these problems, these limitations, these characteristics. This morning ritual of reassuming the old identity ensures that the new day is just a variation of the previous one. You literally choose to be again who you were, instead of allowing yourself to be who you are becoming. Your frequency and your self-image constitute the same thing. They are inseparable. When Neville speaks about states of consciousness, he describes exactly this. Your self-image determines your frequency, and your frequency determines what you attract and experience. They're not two separate elements that need to be aligned. They're different aspects of the same phenomenon. Changing one automatically transforms the other. When you move from struggle, hard work, and doubt to conscious control, everything transforms. Struggle implies resistance, and what you resist persists. Hard work based on the premise that it's hard to achieve reinforces the very difficulty. Doubt sabotages manifestation before it can even begin. Conscious control, on the other hand, means deliberately choosing to assume the desired state, regardless of contrary appearances. Neville calls this walking by faith, not by sight. Mastery over attention and imagination allows you to create anything. These are the two fundamental pillars of the law of assumption. Your attention determines what you make real in your experience. What you consistently focus on grows and strengthens. Your imagination internally constructs reality before it manifests externally. Neville teaches that imagination is God in action, the fundamental creative power operating through human consciousness. When you consciously direct these two powers to sustain the assumption of the wish fulfilled, manifestation becomes inevitable. The childhood conditioning that said you cannot create certain things loses power when you recognize yourself as a unique expression within consciousness. Those internal voices, "This isn't for people like us," "You don't deserve something so good," "Be realistic," all were implanted before you developed critical discernment. They were the limitations and frustrations of others, transferred to your receptive consciousness. The law of assumption allows you to completely transcend these imposed limits, as it operates beyond the realm of social or familial permissions. You consist of 99% intelligent energy, and the frequency you're locked into creates your entire life experience. The physical body that seems so dense and solid is predominantly empty space between subatomic particles. What you experience as solid matter is energy organized in specific patterns through consciousness. When you alter your frequency through the conscious assumption of a new state, you're literally reorganizing the energetic pattern that composes your experience. The process doesn't require you to understand how the transformation will occur. Neville emphasizes that the how is not your responsibility. Your only task is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and remain faithful to that assumption. The means, the bridges of incidents, the necessary synchronicities, all of this emerges naturally when you maintain the assumption with persistence. The Kybalion confirms this principle through the law of correspondence. Firmly maintaining the internal state, the external must eventually correspond. Implementation requires you to consciously choose, moment by moment, from which state you're operating. Are you thinking from the old reality or the new? Are you feeling limited or accomplished? Each moment offers this choice. Initially, the mind will habitually return to old patterns. With gentle but firm persistence, you redirect it to the assumed state. Gradually, the new state becomes more natural than the old, and then external reality reorganizes itself to mirror the internal change established through the law of assumption. Power over your attention, where it goes during the day, what you think about, where your mind travels, radically transforms your reality. Most people consider attention as something passive, an automatic response to environmental stimuli. But attention is your most fundamental creative tool, the brush with which you paint your experience moment by moment. Each direction of attention is a creative act that strengthens certain aspects of reality while allowing others to weaken and dissolve. Observe a typical day. How many times is your attention hijacked by automatic worries? How many minutes do you spend mentally rehearsing conversations that will never happen, solving problems that don't exist, defending yourself from imaginary attacks? Each moment of attention dedicated to these patterns strengthens their presence in your experience. Neville Goddard teaches that attention is the channel through which creative power flows. Direct it consciously, and you direct the very power that builds realities. Each individual's thought at each moment constantly causes a specific energetic sensation. There is no neutral thought. Each one carries its particular vibrational signature. Thinking about scarcity generates contraction in the body, tension in the solar plexus, and a subtle but perceptible feeling of closing. Thinking about abundance produces expansion, openness, and a different quality of presence. These sensations are not just psychological responses, they are real energetic changes that alter your electromagnetic field and, consequently, what you attract. Your self-image currently controls how you feel and what you think, but gaining power over your attention allows you to change thoughts, feelings, and mental direction. The self-image operates as a master program, automatically directing your attention to evidence that confirms its basic premises. If you identify as someone who always has problems with money, your attention naturally seeks and finds confirmation of that identity everywhere. Bills arrive at the wrong time, opportunities are missed, and evidence accumulates. But when you recognize this mechanism, you can consciously redirect attention to evidence of abundance, even if initially it seems small or insignificant. Imagination literally creates your reality, how you see things, and what you visualize throughout the day. Neville Goddard demonstrates through countless practical examples that what you imagine with feeling and persistence must eventually externalize itself. Imagination is the laboratory where all creation begins, the space where you can experiment with realities before they solidify into physical form. Each time you imagine something with vivid clarity, you're planting seeds in the field of consciousness, which will inevitably germinate into experience. When you cease identifying with your current environment, the environment ceases to exist as the dominant reality. This doesn't mean denying what's present, but recognizing that your identification with circumstances is what gives them power over your consciousness. You can be physically in a limited space while your consciousness inhabits palaces. You can have little money in the bank while your imagination operates from abundance. External reality eventually reorganizes itself to correspond to the internal state sustained with persistence. Buddhist, Hindu, and Christian mystical traditions teach that releasing all mental identification makes the world around you cease to exist energetically. The Buddha discovered that attachment, identification with temporary forms, is the root of suffering. Hindu yogis practice vairagya, the conscious detachment that allows transcending the illusion of separation. Christian mystics speak about dying to the world to be reborn in Christ, a metaphor for releasing identification with the temporary and awakening to the eternal. All point to the same truth. Your identification creates your experience. When you withdraw attention from a neural circuit, it weakens. When you stop identifying with a specific version of yourself, that version loses power. Neurons that don't fire together lose their connections. Simultaneously, when you direct attention and imagination to a new identity, new neural circuits form, strengthen, and become the path of least resistance for your future thoughts. Who you believe you are shapes the energy that emanates, defines what you attract, and influences how you perceive the world. This identification goes beyond conscious thought. It constitutes an integral energetic state that manifests in every expression of existence. When someone recognizes themselves as prosperous, their vibration aligns with that quality, and their entire energetic field begins to reflect prosperity. Thus, people, circumstances, and opportunities that share that same frequency tend to naturally converge in their direction. This isn't about chance, but about resonance. What vibrates in harmony attracts at all levels of being. Deep understanding arises when you sit and let go of all mental effort, revealing that identification creates experience. In this space of quietness, without the constant chatter of the mind, without the effort of maintaining identities, something profound reveals itself. You realize you've been observing a character, playing a role, maintaining a story. The observer, your pure consciousness, has always been free, has always had access to any state, any identity, any reality. The prison was self-imposed through unconscious identification. Mastery over attention and imagination requires conscious daily practice. Begin by observing where your attention naturally gravitates. Notice the repetitive patterns, then, gently but firmly, redirect to what you choose to strengthen. Use imagination not as an escape, but as a creative laboratory where you experiment with the feeling of living your preferred reality. Neville insists that you must imagine from the desired state, not about it, be inside the experience, not observing from outside. These two pillars, when consciously directed, become the tools through which you exercise dominion over your experience. It's not forced control, but natural mastery that arises from alignment with the laws that govern consciousness and its expression in the physical world. Giving yourself total freedom to decide which reality you want to experience marks the beginning of transformation. This freedom is not granted by anyone external. It has always been yours, awaiting only your recognition and claiming. Most people live within an extremely limited menu of possibilities, those sanctioned by family, culture, and social class. But when you understand that consciousness doesn't recognize these artificial limits, that the law of assumption operates independently of social permissions, you reclaim the power to choose any configuration of reality that resonates with your deepest essence. Visualizing what your life would be like if everything worked perfectly activates the creative power of consciousness. This isn't escapist fantasy, but a deliberate exercise in conscious creation. Neville Goddard instructs that you must mentally construct the scene that implies the fulfillment of your desire. Not the journey, not the process, but the end result already accomplished. What would your typical day be like living in that reality? Where would you wake up? How would you feel moving through the hours? What conversations would you have? These specific sensory details anchor the new reality in your consciousness. Using imagination to feel and possess something that resonates deeply with your soul establishes the new frequency. Soul resonance is unmistakable. It's that deep feeling of yes that arises when you contemplate certain possibilities. It's not superficial excitement or ego desire, but a deep recognition, almost a remembrance of something you've always known to be true. When you identify that resonance and feed it through conscious imagination, you're literally tuning your frequency to a reality that your essence recognizes as authentic. Few people do this fundamental exercise during their entire lifetimes. They follow pre-written scripts, pursue inherited goals, and live lives that are essentially responses to others' expectations. They never stop to question, if I could experience absolutely any reality, if there were no limits of any kind, what would I choose? This deep questioning, when done with absolute sincerity, often reveals surprising desires that were buried under layers of conditioning. After understanding what you truly desire, mental training directed toward thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that correspond to that reality aligns you with the desired frequency. This training is not a vague or mystical process, it's deliberate neural reconditioning. Each time you consciously choose to think from the desired state instead of the current state, you're creating and strengthening new neural pathways. Joe Dispenza demonstrates that meditators who regularly practice embodying a future state can change their genetic expression, their brainwave patterns, and their body chemistry. Entering a self-image that sings through your soul needs to be a conscious daily choice. It's not enough to decide once and expect everything to change. The old self-image was built through thousands of repetitions, becoming the default pattern of your nervous system. The new self-image requires the same consistency to establish itself. Neville Goddard emphasizes the importance of falling asleep in the desired state, as in that moment of transition between waking and sleep, the conscious mind relaxes its guard, and the new assumption penetrates deeply into the subconscious. If you don't choose consciously, the past, the environment, and social circumstances will choose for you. This is the fate of most, to be chosen by life instead of choosing life. Each morning you wake up without conscious intention, automatic patterns take control. The environment suggests who you should be, the past insists on its continuation, and social expectations shape your possibilities. But the moment you assume conscious control of this process, deliberately establishing your frequency before the world has a chance to impose its own, you become the director instead of the actor, following a script written by others. Recognizing that you transcend all of this and that who you're aware of being determines your experiences completely transforms your life. Seth teaches that you're not at the mercy of invisible forces, but that you're actively creating your experience through your beliefs and expectations. Every experience you have is a materialization of internal states of consciousness. When this becomes natural through consistent training, you gain access to everything you need. People, circumstances, ideas, and creative processes arise because you already are what you seek. This is the secret that Neville Goddard repeatedly emphasizes. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. When you completely assume the awareness of being what you desire, when it becomes your natural identity, the outer world has no choice but to reorganize itself to reflect that inner truth. Within this understanding, changing your mind, not superficially, but at the deep level of assumed identity, changes your personal universe. The right people appear as if by coincidence, opportunities arise out of nowhere, and necessary resources become available through unexpected channels. But there's nothing coincidental or magical about it. It's the natural law of consciousness operating with mathematical precision. Daily implementation requires loving vigilance over your internal states, not tense or obsessive vigilance, but gentle awareness of where you're vibrating moment by moment. When you detect you've fallen into an undesired state, don't fight against it, simply acknowledge and gently return to the chosen state. Over time, maintaining the desired frequency becomes as natural as breathing. All change begins with understanding your role as co-creator, and the only way to connect with that divine intelligence is through meditation. We've developed a set of audio tools to help you access this higher state of consciousness. To learn more and get immediate access, click the link on the screen or in the comments. If this video resonated with you, write in the comments. It made sense to me.